Hi everyone and welcome back to a new video. If you're new here, my name is Rachel and I make videos about whatever interests me at the time. We are talking book reviews, we are talking poetry analysis, lots of intersectional feminist content, lots of standing up for LGBTQ+ rights. Basically, it's about providing you some entertaining content that you can have a little giggle at and have some fun and maybe be shocked by at times, but also providing you with educational resources as well, with a big focus on inclusivity. So it's wonderful to have you here. Hi. If you've seen my channel before, if you've been around a while, you may know that last year I posted a video which was an in-depth exploration, essentially, of the blogs, videos and Instagram content of Fundie content creator Karissa Collins. If you didn't see it, here's a very quick recap. The Collins family is made up of parents Karissa and Mandre, both now in their 40s, and their 10 children whose names all begin with the letter A. Now, as I mentioned, the Collins family are Fundies. They currently live in Texas and of course they homeschool their kids. But they are, as far as I've seen, adamantly pro-natalists and anti-choices. They are homophobic and transphobic. They are anti-vax. They nearly killed their dog because of neglect. They have nearly killed their children because of neglect, and in particular unnoticed and untreated UTIs which turn septic, and they have pretty much all the harmful beliefs you could think of.
If a car was gonna hit you, I would move you out of the way and I would take the hit and I would die for all of you. I would give my life for all of you, but only if you're alive. You have to be born first. If you're in my womb, I wouldn't die for you. And my future babies, I'm not sacrificing that. I would definitely not die for them, but you're here and you're alive, so I would die for you.
I'll die for you.
She goes on to say that America is ungodly, immoral, and a pagan place. Sexual promiscuity has taken over the world. Sex completes your marriage. No more excuses, women, about headaches and long days. This is what you owe your mate.
Where was our first kiss? Oh no.
It was at the club. It was at McGraw's.
Yes. Was it good?
Is that one of the questions, or are you asking? You're not asking
Was it
questions.
good?
I thought it was good. I don't know. It was your first kiss, Riz.
You thought it was good?
It was my. I think you struggled a little bit. It was your first kiss.
It's not me. That was the problem.
Baby, you didn't have anything to say that it was good against.
I just don't like your tongues down my throat.
If you could describe your spouse in one word, what would it be?
What did you write?
I wrote motherly. It's good to know. What you got here, buddy?
If your spouse had a superhero power, what would it be?
You don't know what that is?
What do you think it is?
You don't know what a superhero power is?
Not for you. Then you can skip a question.
No,
you
that's
are
a good
the moderator,
question.
sir.
Answer the question.
Huh?
Answer the question.
Oh my goodness.
Answer the question.
It's probably good on your board.
Answer the
As long as I can
question.
read mine.
Thank you.
Now let's hear your great answer.
Fire out your mouth.
That's explain.
Because fire always comes out your mouth.
Like explain. I am not a dragon.
Because
There she goes again with these generic answers.
no, it's not generic. It's because the things you say are like
Did
fire.
you hear
They
the
burn
detail?
people up.
Did you hear the detail I gave behind
Okay,
this?
the fire that comes out of your mouth burns people.
And it was encouraging,
Yeah, mine's not.
obviously.
Okay. Next.
Oh
Spouse
man.
behaves when they get angry.
Imitate how they behave so you can't write it. Imitate how I behave when I get angry.
Imitate how you behave.
Yeah.
Stop it! Go in your room! How about that? That's to the kids and me. Like, jeez.
Let's see. Whatever. I don't send you to your room.
Pretty much.
I send you to the couch.
Use other words that really kind of pretty much say the same. You know why?
Whatever.
You know why it's good to walk away or to go to the garage? Because my mom taught me. The sloth that you talked about a while ago, she taught me that if you don't have anything nice to say,
Oh, well, she
then
needs
don't
to
say it at
reteach
all.
you. That's why I said there's fire that comes out of your mouth.
But I go to the garage. I guess you see the fire through the garage door? Like, I guess. I don't know how that works.
But yes, I'm an open book. I'll tell everybody everything.
Yeah. There are certain
Bank
things.
account.
There are certain things that happen in a relationship.
Actually, I just thought about something.
Hold on. There are certain things that, hey, this is for you people, all right? There are certain things that happen inside of a marriage that should never, and I mean never, be discussed with somebody outside of your marriage.
We don't have any deep, dark secrets between us. But I can think of a deep, dark secret that I would not share with anybody, and they couldn't pay me enough money to share it.
Oh. You have one?
I know one.
Oh. You said for you or between us?
No, neither. I just know one.
What?
So yes, if the secret was bad enough, I would not tell.
I wish my spouse would stop.
This is very easy.
Belittling me. You
I
can't belittle a big guy. Okay?
that would be my answer too. But my real...
You're not a big guy, so that
I
couldn't be
would like
yours.
you to not belittle me.
A while back, she made a 45-minute long live stream telling the story of how her baby ended up in intensive care twice thanks to untreated UTIs. That's a urinary tract infection.
Anthem had a small fever and she wasn't eating as much, and she just like all of a sudden lost complete control of her muscles. So she couldn't hold her head up. She wouldn't lift her legs. She like her face drooped. She had no facial expressions. We ended up going to lunch afterwards. Wouldn't look at her. Her eyes were like this. It was just really scary. So we went to eat lunch, and she just looked really, really bad. So we got to Cook's emergency room, or I took her by myself. The rest of the family stayed and ate lunch with my mom. They admitted her. They took her to the back to the emergency room, and they took her blood, like did a bunch of tests. They ended up doing, because we don't vaccinate, which they tried to blame her sickness on us not vaccinating. And so because we don't vaccinate, they really thought she had tuberculosis. So then they took her straight to an MRI and an X-ray. And as he was taking her to the MRI, a nurse came over, looked at me, told him a secret, and then took off. And I'm like, what is happening? I already have fears of CPS because social media calls CPS so much. So we run into this new room, and they hook her up to all these machines. They're all yelling. They're yelling that she has sepsis and to hurry up. And they hook her up to all kinds of machines. And then they eventually put her on high flow oxygen. She looks scared out of her mind. They put a neck brace on her because she is like, her neck is wobbling. She can't, she literally has no muscle control. At this point, all they know is that she had a UTI.
Despite Karissa saying that she'd never neglect or forget or ignore her kids, here's a post about how she has too many kids to keep track of, so she actually forgot about one of them for a family photo. She just left the kid in the car. And this was September 2019 when the Collins family had 8 kids, so they've got 2 more now. I don't know if it's just my husband, but he seems to not know his strength. And I feel that he sometimes spanks too hard, and I don't want to cross the line of abuse. It seems to be a thin line. Karissa saying she doesn't think spanking works, but she admits Mandre does it, and sometimes he goes too far and doesn't know his own strength. That's worrying enough until you realise how old the kids are in this. Anissa wasn't even 2 years old at this point, and Andre was maybe like a month old, maybe 2-3 months max. And you're worried your husband is hitting them too hard because he doesn't know his own strength. That is terrifying. Just a year ago, this video was published of Mandre waving around a spatula with a literal baby, saying that this is what they get spankings with. Watch this. It's
Good girls want this. Whack, 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 whack. That's what you get spankings with. Here you go.
You can't expect us to not be worried about the kids when we're seeing this sort of thing. Karissa decided that the best response to this, to my video, was to get a lawyer who is not even licensed to practice law in Texas where she lives, or in the UK for that matter, to send me a typo-riddled cease and desist letter that they'd put together literally overnight, asking me to stop calling them paedophiles. Something which I had never done and never will do. Very odd. Now, I'm quite familiar with defamation cases and everything that goes on behind the scenes and the legal aspect, and I can say with confidence, this letter is not how it's done. But it was a source of a good giggle for me and quite a few people over on the Fundie Snarks subreddit. If you just let me read you a couple of highlights. Oates. Just Oates. I'm just Oates. Please be advised, our office represents the Collins family, specifically Mandre and Karissa, and hereby demand, all capital letters, you cease and desist posting any and all defamatory, slanderous, false statements, and remove negative verbal or written posts on any and all social media, entertainment platforms, and refrain from emailing persons connected to the Collins family. It is obvious you create and post falsehoods for whatever reason or reasons on your known social media sites, which I myself have reviewed your posts and social media accounts. 2 full stops. However, your statements are against the state and federal laws of Texas. And you have opened yourself up to costly litigation. Please understand that the cease and desist is being served upon you for the despicable and unlawful statements you posted and stated on your social media platforms, including but not limited to YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, and Tumblr. I don't have Tumblr. My Facebook is completely private, and I've never posted anything about Karissa on there. I don't think I posted anything on there in like 6 years. Oh, I guess I do have a Facebook page, but again, I don't post on, I guess cross-posting from Instagram. Don't post about on Instagram. Anyway, I'm aware you have made these disturbing posts without conducting any research or diligence and have shown to engage in writing false posts maliciously and willfully regarding Mandre Collins, Karissa Collins, and their church. However, you have made statements and posts that are extremely unlawful and warrant the pending litigation. Here you have posted incredulous and false references to Mandre and Karissa Collins. Furthermore, you are posting incredulous, they love that word, and defaming accusations about Mandre Collins, Karissa Collins, and their church, which are undoubtedly false, so you will be liable. Love the random spaces in there at times. No reputable lawyer would ever use statements like, you create and post falsehoods for whatever reasons, the despicable and unlawful statements, incredulous and false references, incredulous and damning accusations. That's not how solicitors talk in defamation cases. It is completely unprofessional. This just isn't how it's happening. And you can't just say these things are happening, you need to show specific examples, which Erica never does. She says, to be clear, the statements you made in the post are extremely false, defamatory, and slanderous, which makes you liable. No, it doesn't, because you've not provided any examples of these statements that I've supposedly made, and you can't say that me reading out Karissa's blog posts and Instagram posts are false, because I'm reading out her words. I did email back and ask Erica to provide me with a full list of examples of what statements I said which were defamatory, and she never got back to me, so yeah. Moreover, you have no evidence to support the veracity of the statements of molestation, aiding and abetting, concealment, and your false statements, false posts, and false actions are harmful to Mandre and Karissa Collins, their family, and church. So I've never accused the Collins family of any of those things. Having too many children? Yes. Being homophobic and transphobic? Yes. Nearly killing their dog? Yes. Nearly letting their kid die? Yes. But molestation, aiding, abetting, and concealment? They're very serious accusations that I never brought up, and the fact that they're bringing them up leaves me concerned. I'm like, who's been accusing you of these things, and is there good reason to? Very odd, isn't it? They go on, they keep doubling down on this. Mandre Collins and Karissa Collins are not paedophiles, nor have they molested children or harmed anyone in any capacity whatsoever, and we challenge you to proffer evidence to support such baseless accusations. No one ever said they were paedophiles. Why are you bringing this up? This is like, you know when you walk into a room and a kid's like, I'm not doing anything, you just know they were doing something, you know? No, but seriously, it's just very bizarre, isn't it? I don't know where this is coming from. We'll be requesting a court to suspend your social media accounts for unlawful and harmful defamatory content due to your reckless posting of such horrendous content as if it is true. Your actions are reprehensible and must be stopped in effort to prevent your perpetration of known misrepresentations of Mandre Collins, Karissa Collins, Collins family, and Collins church. And that's all I've got. No examples of anything I've actually said which would be considered defamatory. No examples of damage I've caused to Karissa and Mandre. Like, I did accuse them of nearly killing their dog by reading out Karissa's account of nearly killing their dog. But the only thing they've asked me to do is stop accusing them of molesting children, which I've never accused them of. So I guess we're good to go with the rest of this video. Like I said earlier, briefly, I did email Erica back, and I said, please provide the proof that I have said statements which are false, and then further proof that this has damaged the Collins family's reputation, causing direct monetary loss. If you wish to provide this evidence in a court and pursue this further, then go ahead, but until then, I will not be removing my well-researched video in which I made no defamatory statements. I did not get a reply. So that's where we left things with Karissa Collins, and while I wasn't planning on covering her again, I also wasn't going to be bullied into taking down my video just because she didn't like that someone was talking about her, you know? Protecting people from defamation is a really, really important part of our legal system, and it's one which I thoroughly support. But sadly, that's not what Karissa and her lawyer were trying to do here. They were trying to use legal jargon to scare me into silence, not knowing that, because of my own current experiences, I'm actually quite versed in what the defamation process is like, what evidence you require, what you need to show. In Carissa's case, and in my own personal case that I'm bringing against someone else, I'm not in the wrong, and the law is on my side. All that said, I just thought that would be a funny little thing to start this video with. That's not what this video is about. I wasn't going to talk about Karissa Collins again until I learned she's released a book, and you know how much I love to review books on this channel. This book is called Should We Stop? Tackling all the reasons people stop having children and what God's word says about it. And even the description of her book has so many typos. This is just like a typo-riddled bundle of typos. Even the book description has like whole sentences that are just copied in there twice because no one can proofread apparently. It currently sits at 1 out of 5 stars on Amazon, and Karissa has the cheek to sell this 64-page book for over 11 quid. I know. It is more expensive than my poetry book, and I might be biased, but I think my poetry book is a little better value for money. Thankfully though, I didn't have to pay for this book outright. I actually accessed it for free via Kindle Unlimited, so Karissa won't have got more than a couple of pennies out of me, which is still more than she deserves for this nonsense, but, you know, best case scenario here. This video is definitely not going to be as in-depth as some of my recent videos have been, but I'm trying to work on a few shorter videos at the minute just to give myself a little bit of a break, because there's been a lot going on. I've been quite ill, my mental health has been in the gutter, so I'm trying to take it a bit easy at the minute. Hopefully though, even though this is shorter, we can still have a giggle along the way, learn a little something. Mostly though, I'm just excited to hear your thoughts on this book, so please get ready in the comments. Let me know what you think as we go along, because I'm excited to hear from you. So first up, why is this entire book centrally aligned? The entire book. Please stop. Okay, the introduction. What does God say about family size and trusting him with how many children? From this first sentence alone, you know the quality of writing is just worse than Brooklyn Beckham, you know? How many children to what, Karissa? To eat for breakfast? Give context when you're starting your book. It wouldn't have taken much more effort to just add a have on the end. Trusting him with how many children to have. It provides context. Look, I'm being picky, okay? I'm being picky. But these are the basics of good written communication that Karissa just doesn't do. But this is the least egregious thing in the book. Let's move on. I feel done. I can't provide. I don't have any more patience. I am tired. I get it. I felt all those feelings. My cup's been empty. No apostrophe. My body's been tired. Oh, the plural. My heart has been weary. My resources have been exhausted. So when do you know if you're done having children? I have the best news for you. You won't know. How is this woman homeschooling her children when she doesn't even know herself in her own writing the difference between contractions and plurals? My cups, my bodies, they're plurals. Your cup has been empty. Cup apostrophe S. Your body has been tired. Body apostrophe S. Yes, basic stuff. But all that aside, just because you don't know when to stop, Karissa, that doesn't mean other people won't. And don't. They do. Allow other people to have control over their own bodies. It is that simple. That's what faith is. Surrendering the no. Surrendering control. Surrendering your feelings and knowledge. Complete trust in only his plans and ways. As someone who struggles with anxiety, this sounds like hell, right? Not just me. Knowing children come from him alone, and he makes no mistakes. Look, in terms of writing here, other than her terrible grammar and her overly simple sentences, her lack of consistency when capitalizing words relating to God is very annoying to me. Sometimes it's a capital H, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a capital G, sometimes it's not. It's just like whatever took a fancy on the day, you know? Give God your womb and watch him do the impossible as you trust in him and live in the freedom of not having to decide when you're done, but with an open heart to allow God to give as he pleases. If this is what freedom looks like to Karissa, great, wonderful, happy for her, you do you. But for so many of us, the idea of being trapped in a life we don't want, forced to carry and then provide for a living creature we don't want, having something use our body for resources without our consent, that's not freedom for a lot of us. Freedom is having the ability to choose what happens with our own bodies, whether we want a pregnancy or not, whether we want children in our lives or not. There's no one right way to do pregnancy or parenting or being child-free. Freedom is the right to choose. It drives me crazy how some people simply can't see that different people want different things in life. Despite the genuine worries I have for Karissa and her health and her well-being, and in particular her children's health and well-being, I'd never sit here and argue about her right to have her own feelings about her own pregnancies and her body and her life, you know? She is more than entitled to that. Like, if pregnancy makes her feel good and this is how she feels free in life, then who am I to tell her that she's wrong about her own life and her own feelings about it? I wouldn't do that. I couldn't do that. But what I will say is that you shouldn't be forcing your beliefs on other people. Like, just because I don't want children myself, that doesn't mean I can go around telling other people that they shouldn't want children or they shouldn't have children. That's just completely wrong. Yet when Karissa's doing the literal opposite of that, she seems to think it's okay. What do I believe the heart of God in family planning is? Complete trust. Trusting God to give as he sees fit no matter what. In a marriage covenant, abstinence outside of that. If you happen to get pregnant not in a marriage covenant, it is okay. God forgives and restores. It will be harder to raise a child outside of a covenant, but that child is still an absolute gift and blessing. Ah, there it is! Wouldn't be a Fundie book without shaming sex outside marriage, would it? There you go. That means no prevention at all. Simply being free to enjoy your spouse. God, no. If I had no birth control, there is no way I would be feeling free or enjoying anything. I don't know about you guys, but oof. I literally, like 2 days ago, got my coil implanted finally. My Marina coil is, oh my god, it has been a journey. If you've been following this for a while, you know that I have had so many ups and downs with my periods, terrible, painful periods. It makes me a mess, and I've been trying to get something more permanent for a while, and I've been wanting the coil for a while, and there's been so much like drama around it. I had my ovarian cyst that ruptured, and then when they tried to insert the coil after that, I have like a weirdly positioned cervix and an abnormally small cervix and uterus, so it was a whole nightmare getting in there. I had to be referred to a specialist, and oh god, the waiting list has been crazy. Anyway, I finally got it implanted, and while I'm still not protected yet, I've got to wait until next Friday, I think, before I'm protected from pregnancy, and then it's going to be a while before my next period, so I don't know how it's going to affect that yet, and it might be a couple of months before it really settles out into helping me with my periods. But knowing that's finally in there, that I finally got a more permanent solution, because this coil, I've oh no, my card's in my purse, but this particular brand of it keeps me protected for the next 9.5 years. No kids for 9.5 years. Like, I'm not gonna have to worry about it as long as this stays functioning normally, which it should. It absolutely should. That is freedom. Knowing that I don't have to worry about pregnancy until 2033. God, it's like this thing that's been hanging over me literally since I got my first period at 16. This like risk and fear of pregnancy, like, gone. It's like, oh, you have no idea how much more comfortable I feel in my body and I didn't even realise quite how much of an anxiety it was hanging over me until it was finally in there, and I was like, oh my god, it's done now. I'm good. I'm gonna be safe. Anyway, sorry. That's what freedom is to me. Off topic there. I'm still anxious about the period stuff, but we're gonna have to see how it goes. In all likelihood, it's going to help me with my painful and heavy periods, but there is a very small chance it could make them worse. Very, very small, very unlikely. And it might be a little all over the place for the first few months, but I'm more than happy to just see what happens. You know, I'm feeling good about it all. Anyway, okay, the main chunk of this book. So, each chapter is about a page long, and each covers a reason why people say they don't want kids or they don't want any more kids, and Karissa attempts to tell us why they're wrong, and why, in her opinion, no, you should have more kids anyway. Number 1 is, I'm too old. Reason number 1 people stop having children, I'm too old and it's dangerous. Karissa, apostrophe, please. Honestly, at 39 and 10 children later, I feel better than ever. In fact, I think I feel better than when I was 26 and pregnant. Crazy, huh? The older I get, the wiser I get, and the more I trust God because I'm more confident in what He will do. Now, I'm not one of these people who will tell you if you want to have kids, you need to have them super young and as early as possible. No, I know plenty of people who have kids when they're older and they absolutely love it and it works for them and it's great. I mean, my mum had me when she was 38, you know? So I get it. Plenty of people have kids when they're older and they're great, wonderful parents. However, it's also a fact that the more kids you have, especially over a prolonged period of time, the more of a toll it takes on your body and the more damage you're risking. Especially when, like Karissa, your pregnancies are so close together that your body doesn't have time to heal in between them before you're pregnant again. Karissa's currently pregnant now with her 11th kid at like 41, I think, something like that. And ordinarily, there are some risks involved with pregnancy in your 40s, but at her age, with the medicine we have now and everything like that, it might not be too dangerous, except the fact she's had 10 kids before and her body is a wreck and she has nearly died having kids multiple times before. It makes me worry about her, like, so much. She's nearly died in childbirth. She's had miscarriages and refused to seek treatment for them and nearly died. She has so many health problems that she's spoken about in her blogs and stuff like that. Like, she's had mini strokes, she's got heart problems, like, all of this stuff. Like, the doctors have warned her multiple times, if you have another pregnancy, you will likely die. They tell her she's in danger and she just doesn't care. And while that makes me worry about her and it's shocking to hear, it's also kind of not my business, because if she wants to take that risk, that is absolutely her right. It's her body, it's her life, she can do that. But what's not okay is her turning around and judging other people in her situation for not wanting to die and leave their kids without a parent. A person saying, I'm too old or I'm too unhealthy to have a kid is a perfectly reasonable reason. You know what I mean? She says many women tie their tubes or force their husbands to get a vasectomy due to being too old. No one should be forcing anyone to get an operation they don't want, obviously. But I feel like most men who get vasectomies, it's their choice, right? Tell me if I'm wrong. But does anyone else notice Karissa's subtle narrative of like, oh, evil women forcing their men into bad stuff here. Men only get vasectomies if the evil women tell them to. We saw quite a lot in her blog post that I covered in the last Karissa video that she seems to have a real internalized hatred of women, and it's really, really sad to see. And we see that here throughout this book repeatedly. She says, and let me tell you biblically, there's never been a number you're told to stop at or a limitation due to age. No, you're right, there's no biblical rule, there's no any rule, because there's no one rule for everyone. It's about what's best for each individual, and the only people who know that are the individual themselves, maybe their partner, and their doctor, you know? For one person, one pregnancy might be incredibly dangerous. For another, 3, 4 pregnancies might be fine. But basically, if your doctor's saying you are in danger, you are likely to die, and you don't want to leave your current children without a parent, you should probably stop. It's the responsible thing to do for your current children, you know? Anyway. Karissa doesn't agree with this though. She says, just because the average doctor says it's dangerous doesn't make it actually dangerous. Why listen to the experts over the creator? Because they've spent their entire lives studying this stuff and helping people, and they want to keep us alive, and we know they actually exist and they're real? Statements like this really worry me, I'll be honest. She says that people might say, but I don't want to be the old parent at my child's graduation, or have my child mistaken for my grandchild. Is that child's life not worthy of your discomfort? Well, it's not that, and it's also just like not about the parent's discomfort, but it's about the kid as well, and their well-being and their discomfort, yeah. Not always, but sometimes with older parents, kids do struggle with stuff. Sometimes the kids have to become carers for their parents if they get elderly or ill, even while they're still kids themselves. The parents can't do everything with the kids that the kids would like they maybe can't be as physically active and stuff anymore. The parents might die while the kid is still young. It's not to say old parents are bad, not at all, but I just think it's important to be aware of these potential problems before you go into a pregnancy and weigh everything up before making your decision, and not just bury our heads in the sand and pretend there's no issues like Karissa does. There's nothing wrong with being an older parent, but that doesn't mean it's completely risk-free either. You know, you have to figure out what's best for you and your potential child. Reason number 2 why most families stop having children. This was the biggest reason we questioned having more children. Time. Oh, this is so horribly written, isn't it? So, I didn't really understand what Chris was referring to in this chapter at first, but from what I can tell, it's about how the more kids you have, the less time you have to spend with each kid, but she never really explains that. First of all, we devalue the time our children spend with their siblings. No, we don't, but we're also aware that it's not fair to ask kids to raise their siblings. This is called parentification, and it's something that I've spoken about in other videos. It can be really, really damaging for the other siblings. I first quoted this in my video on the IBLP and the Duggars, but there's an article in The Guardian that suggests the parentified child who supports the parent often incurs a cost to her own psychic stability and development. As a consequence of always looking after others, little space is left for the child to know or express her own needs. The only legitimate needs seem to be those of others. Expressing her needs is met with frustration, anger, or other parental emotions that link her needs with fear and shame. This leads to the development of what pediatrician and psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott in 1960 called a false self. In its unhealthiest form, this self-denying persona allows their parentified child to stop expressing and fulfilling her own needs and gain value from foregrounding the needs of others. It makes sense that parentified adults struggle with setting healthy, balanced boundaries and find themselves in abusive or exploitative relationships, whether with friends, co-workers, or romantic partners. So basically, parentification not just damages and interferes with a child's childhood, but also impairs their development into adulthood as well and makes things more difficult for them. Getting your kids to look after your other kids is damaging. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't ask your kid to babysit every once in a while for a couple of hours here and there, but when your kids are a core part of, looking after their younger siblings day after day after day, and you couldn't look after the younger ones without the older ones, and it's, these kids have to sacrifice stuff to look after the little ones, that's when it becomes a problem. Karissa needs to realise that people who are concerned for kids raising other kids aren't just complaining for the sake of it. We're worried because we've seen children damaged by this before. She says, second, I find it so funny for people with their children in school to tell a big homeschooling family that they don't have enough time with their children. As a society, we think sending our children away for 8 to 10 hours a day for school, then 2 to 4 hours for extracurriculars, and then 2 hours every Sunday for church is normal. As a whole, families barely see their children when they have 1 or 19. 8 to 10 plus extracurriculars seems like a lot, right? I don't know about you, but my school was 9, 3:30. I'm pretty sure that was fairly standard in the UK. And as for extracurriculars, I didn't really do anything because we couldn't really afford that. But I don't think I know anyone who is away doing extracurriculars away from their parents for 4 hours a day. I think she's exaggerating for effect here, And as for the Sunday school thing, well, that's a you problem. So Carissa's hours are exaggerated. But even so, you have to realise that it's actually really important for the child's development to spend time away from the parents and the family and be around their peers for socialisation. Kids interacting with other kids is a really important part of their development and learning to communicate and developing social skills. All that said, people aren't just talking about you spending time near your kids and, being in the same room as them and stuff. People are talking about proper one-on-one quality time. So time for the kids to talk to you about their lives, their problems, their experiences. Time for you to listen to them. Time for you to learn who they are. Even if you're home 24/7 with 10 kids and another on the way, people worry that Carissa's kids don't get enough of this active one-on-one time where she's really listening to them and interacting with them every day. One quick Google search suggested to me that some parenting coaches recommend spending 10 to 30 minutes of uninterrupted time with your child. If you've got 2 kids, it might look like 15 minutes of uninterrupted time one-on-one each. If you've got more than 2, you could stick to 10 minutes each. Even for Karissa, if, she was 10 to 30 minutes, this would take between 2 and 5 hours every day to have one-on-one time with all her kids. Add on top of that the fact that she'll need and want some time alone with her husband, that she's probably doing around 4, or she should be doing around 4 hours of homeschooling a day. Although, to be fair, with how many ages of kids she's got and their different abilities and what the different things she should be learning, she should probably be doing a lot more than that to make sure she's covering everything for everyone. Plus, ideally 8 hours of sleep. Plus, she's the only one responsible for cooking and cleaning the house and doing all the, chores and stuff. Taking care of the dogs, walking the dogs. Dog needs at least, half an hour exercise a day? How is she fitting it all in? And then on top of that as well, what about alone time for her? What about the time she needs to shower and pee and eat and just the necessities of looking after yourself? This is why people are worried, because there's not enough hours in the day for her to do everything she needs to do, so it seems there's probably some sacrifices somewhere, and maybe some of the kids aren't getting as much time as they need or as much attention as they need, And let's say she can squeeze it all in and every single minute is accounted for and she can do this and this and this and this and this. Just because you can, it doesn't mean you should. This is not an ideal life for everyone. Not everyone wants to be squeezing in as much of the bare minimum as possible. Some people would rather have a solid hour of quality time with one kid than 6 rushed 10-minute sessions with 10 kids, you know? And if people want to choose one or the other, that is a perfectly acceptable choice to make. Just because people might be able to do everything and might be able to do more, that doesn't mean they should. It's okay for people to put limits on what they can manage and what they want to manage. She says, third, time alone isn't any more valuable than all of us being together. While we are intentional about alone time with each child on their birthdays and errand dates, alone time isn't a non-negotiable to if you should have more children. Even if you never have those one-on-one dates with them, their life is still worthy of existence. So for everything I just said, I could not disagree more. And also, I feel like this sounds like she only does one-on-one time with them on their birthdays, which is 1 day a year instead of every day, ideally. Concerning, right? I don't know if this is a controversial thing for me to say, but I thoroughly believe that quality of life is way more important than quantity of life, you know? I think it's far more responsible for a person to say, I'm going to make sure this one person has an incredible, amazing life, rather than give 10 people a struggled, mediocre existence, you know? I'm sorry, but I just don't see the same value in mere existence as Karissa clearly does. I value life with meaning and happiness and opportunities and contentment and safety, and I think it's our responsibility to make sure that the people who are currently sentient and around us and living have a high quality of life before we start creating more lives. And I think if you do make the choice to bring a life into the world, then you should only do it knowing that you can provide those things for it that will give it, you know, a happy, healthy, safe life. If you can't do that, don't bring a child into the world, because the quality of life is more important than the quantity. That simple. It might be controversial, but there we go. Of course, it's more nuanced than that. It's not just that black and white, and there are cases where, you know, there are different ways of defining what makes a quality life and stuff. And I'm not saying that, like, you know, if someone, I don't know, if someone's poor, they shouldn't have kids, or if a kid's going to be born with a disability, then they shouldn't live. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that, like, if you're going to bring kids into the world with a disadvantage like that, then you have to know that you can make up for it in other areas, that you can still give them a quality of life in other ways, whether that's just giving them more personal one-on-one time, care, attention, love, looking after their needs. You know what I mean? There's nuances to it. Oh my god, I'm just looking at my script here. This is quite a brutal note from me. It was quite late at night when I was writing this script, and I think I was a little grumpy, because this is a little bit brutal. Sorry about this. I wrote, Karissa reminds me of the type of kid who flips through a colouring book and scribbles on every page and then says, it's done, compared to the one kid who spends their time carefully colouring one page until it's finished. You know? I compared her kids to pages of a colouring book. Brutal, I'm sorry. Oh god. I always feel so conflicted, because, like, I do feel conflicted about stuff like this, like, especially when I'm critiquing the actions of people and the things they've said and stuff like that. And, like, I don't want to be mean, and I don't want to, like, be nasty for the sake of it, and I think there's definitely a line, you know? Like, I'd never want to comment on someone's, like, appearance or anything like that, but, like, sometimes I find it hard to know where that line is, because you don't want to verge into just nastiness, you know? You don't want to verge into criticising someone just for the sake of criticising them, because they're there. It's always got to be with a purpose. So sometimes I'll send my scripts to, like, Kieran or something and be like, is this okay? Is this too mean? Is this, you know, is this alright to say? Like, we were, so my friend Daisy was visiting week before last when I got, before I got ill, and oh my god, we had the most wonderful night. We went out for dinner with my favourite ever band. They've been my favourite since I was, like, 16, and we went for dinner with them. Then we hung out after the show, and, like, oh my god, best night of my life. Loved it. But before we went out, we were hanging around. We stopped in an Airbnb over in Sheffield, and her friend James was there, who she's been touring around the country with, playing music. They're wonderful, very talented. And James was, like, asking me about some of my videos and stuff, and he's interested in photography too, so he watched my Brooklyn Beckham photography video, and he was playing it back, and I was listening to the things I said, and I was like, oh my god, I'm brutal. This is horrible. How could I say this stuff? This is so nasty. And James just like, but it's all true. You're making really good points. Like, you've nothing to worry about. So I don't know. I don't always know where that line is, and I try and make sure I'm staying on the side of kindness whilst also truth. Hard. Anyway, sorry, personal rant aside. Chapter 4, let's zoom forward just a little bit. overpopulation. Karissa tells us that overpopulation is a lie and we aren't running out of resources, and she refuses to comment on pollution and overpopulation and basically us not having enough resources and stuff because, and I quote, "It's straight up common sense that it's a lie. Have you ever flown over the US or Mexico? That's all I've flown over. There's countless uninhabited land." I have rarely seen such an oversimplified and uninformed take on this topic. Generally these days, when there's areas of uninhabited land, is uninhabited for a reason. There's not enough resources out there, there's not enough stuff to sustain life, it's difficult to get resources to them. Sometimes it's important to preserve areas of essentially Greenland and nature and just let animals and plants grow free, uninhibited, without us stealing their resources and taking away their space. There's lots of I barely even want to justify this with an answer because it's a waste of time. Karissa. She says, "It's been proven you can put the entire world's population in a small portion of Texas. We're not overpopulated, we're just all overcrowded city. We just all overcrowd city." So you're saying the way to combat overcrowding is more overcrowding? I'm very confused by that. But again, just because we can doesn't mean we should. Just because we could cram the population into such a small place and then do that again and again and again and again and again doesn't mean we should. Having that many people smushed into one small space and then having that repeated again and again and again all over the world would be a nightmare in terms of air, water, noise and light pollution in those particular areas. And if we're having that repeated again and again and again, there are simply not going to be enough resources for everyone. That is a fact. On top of that, human well-being matters as well. And humans generally do better when we can choose where we live, when we have access to green open spaces, when we can live in nicer environments, when we're not surrounded by pollution that's making us ill all the time. Just because we can get more people onto the planet by smushing us together doesn't mean we should, and it doesn't mean it wouldn't destroy the planet in the process. Carissa's view here is just very short-sighted and uncaring, and please read a book. Reason 5 people stop having children: I want me/us time. I want to travel and find me. First, I want to say this, I get it, and I can tell you that it's in motherhood I've found myself. Cool, good for you, but what about all the people who lost themselves in parenthood because they exist, and their experiences matter? There are people who do greatly regret becoming parents, as sad as that is. It's just a fact. I know, also for a fact, that pregnancy and motherhood would wreck me. I don't see why Karissa can't see that different people just want different experiences, and that is okay. Not everyone finds themselves in motherhood like she did. Some of us are meant to be parents and some of us aren't. Either's okay. I can remember the early years of motherhood when my flesh fought the selfless calling of being a mother. I refused to go all in. I had one foot in my time and the other foot in their time. I woke up and survived my way to bedtime. I remember watching the clock counting down to bedtime when I could just have me time. I remember the mum guilt of missing them once they were in bed and regretting being frustrated and exhausted. I remember promising to cherish every moment and then repeating the same behaviours and surviving until bedtime again. Yeah, you're really selling it to me here, Karissa. Carry on. The mum always looking for me time and counting down to bedtime is gone. You wouldn't recognise me. I stay up with all 10 kids every night until they're ready to go to bed. I cherish my time with them. I don't even want me time anymore. Oh, bless her. I can't go anywhere without them. They're everything to me. I just need to surrender my will and find the heart of God in motherhood. Yes, they're always around, eating my food, interrupting my bath time, following me to the bathroom, and always ending up in my bed, and I know now that this is the best life, and I wouldn't have it any other way. This is my me time, exactly how I long to spend my days. Again, I have mixed feelings about this. On the one hand, I completely understand the sentiment of enjoying even the difficult moments when you love someone, you know? I think being grateful in those difficult moments is the best thing you can do. You know, like I make sure I tell KYRA every day just how much I love her. And in those moments when she's being a demanding little bean and I'm getting a little bit stressed, I'll be like, baby, I love you, but you're being a little demanding and I need you to go lie down, please. And it's reminding myself as much as her that I still love her and I'm still treasuring this moment, even though I just need a little bit of quiet time, you know? So on the one hand, while reading this, I can appreciate that Karissa loves motherhood and even loves the difficult moments and makes sure to remind herself that She chose this life, this is what she wants, this is what she enjoys. Even when it's difficult, she still loves her kids. I completely understand that and I respect that, and I think it's a really good thing for her to keep reminding herself. However, she has to surely realise that not everyone wants that. When I adopted KYRA, I knew that there would be difficult times as well. There'd be times when she was ill and needy. There would be times when she wanted attention and I needed to work. There would be times when, we both get grumpy because she needs a walk but it's chucking it down, and we both end up going outside and just grumbling the whole time, And they're the difficult moments. But I knew all that going in, and I still said, yes, they're going to be worth it. I choose to do this. Just like I hope Karissa did that with her kids. She knew it would be difficult, she knew there would be tough times, and she chose to go into it. And that's how you can still feel so much love in those difficult moments. But when you don't choose that for yourself, if it's forced upon you, it's just not good for anyone involved, is it? Oh, God. See, I rambled, but I literally wrote this bit in my script next. I said, there's a difference between reminding someone to enjoy the difficult moments of something they chose for themselves and wanted, and guilting someone for not enjoying the constant difficult moments of something they didn't choose, were forced into, and never wanted and still don't want. The latter is what Carissa's doing, and it's really damaging. There we go. I should just read what Past Me wrote. I was far more articulate than this. Proving my point. Reason 6 people stop having children: God gave us a brain to use, we must be wise. This is one of the most common responses I get, so let's dig deeper. Spoiler, she does not dig deeper. Okay, so basically her answer here is, don't be silly. The Bible doesn't tell us to think for ourselves. Stop it. Not even joking. A lot of methods of control don't want people thinking for themselves. If you look at cult checklists and stuff like that, you'll see things like information control and mind control, stopping people thinking about things for themselves and getting information from outside sources. Funny that there's some similarities here. Basically, yeah, Karissa is just about stop getting your information from anywhere other than the Bible. Stop thinking for yourself and just pop out the babies. Don't decide this, just do it. It's terrifying, isn't it? I really feel like if you believe what you're saying, and you're trying to convince someone otherwise, you'll say to people, look, here are the facts, have a think about it for yourself, and come to your own conclusion. But Karissa is literally saying, no, stop thinking for yourself, just do what I say. Shh. Is it because she has that little confidence in what she's saying, or, I don't know, I don't have another option. Yeah. Then she lists a bunch of Bible quotes and says, with random capital letters and a thorough misunderstanding of how conjunctions work, I could go on and on. I never encourage cherry-picking verses here and there to find God's heart and wisdom, because ultimately we can make any random Bible verse mean something it doesn't to justify what we prefer. We must read his entire word to know what his will is. I can't find anywhere in the Bible it says we are to use our brains and wisdom to do anything in this life. He never gives permission to prevent life. You're not convincing me here, Karissa. Reason 7 people stop having children is that's your conviction. Not every family is called to have children. I want to get something clear before I dig into conviction. I never teach God's will is for every family to have a lot of children. I believe God's will is for every family to trust him to give as many children as he sees fit. That might mean 0, that might mean 20. That means no prevention, tracking, or trying. God, no tracking. Just straight up trusting God. So that's correct. Every family isn't called to have a lot of children, but every family is called to trust God to decide. Got you. So it doesn't actually matter what we do, as long as whatever happens is not our choice. That seems healthy. Honestly, kind of terrifying, right? As far as my conviction, we can't label every belief as a conviction. There's truth and lies. We might have a certain conviction about what modesty means and how to live that out, some in skirts, some covered head to toe, and some with longer shirts. But when it comes to our faith and trust in God, it's not a conviction. God's word has plenty to say about our bodies and our wombs. That's a whole lot of words to say she cherry picks the Bible. It's like, oh well, some things are open to interpretation and some aren't. But only the things I say. Whole lot of nothing. Next up, Karissa touches on the topic of health again, and this is so dangerous. I relate so much to this reason. In fact, I've been told many times that getting pregnant again would put my life in danger. I've almost died in a miscarriage. I've had a 29-week birth and was hospitalized for 5 weeks. I've had mini strokes and a subchorionic hemorrhage from birth control. I've had very hard pregnancies and scares. I've experienced so much throughout my 13 pregnancies, and what I've learned the most is to trust God. He trumps our feelings, experiences, and the doctor's opinions. Yes, I'm very grateful for doctors that only want to help with the information they have, but God has all the information. He formed us. He knows for sure. He made our bodies perfectly for childbirth. Our bodies are capable of far more than we think. In fact, as I trust God, my pregnancies only get better. I guess it's easy to think this way when you're not the one who has to deal with the consequences if you die. If Karissa dies in childbirth, and I don't mean to sound heartless, but it's not going to affect her. The people who are affected are going to be her kids who are left without a parent. I cannot fathom how Karissa can be here giving people advice when she's actively continuing to do something that could leave her kids without a mother, and encouraging other people to do the same. Oh, my grumble bag, there you go. Go on, sit down. You get comfy. There you go. You happy? You happy? Gonna say hi to everyone. Say hello. Aren't you beautiful? Sorry, she was crying in the other room. She just wants some attention, don't you? I know, baby. I get the same way. Okay, should we read this together? Yeah, do you mind if I squeeze through? So we're talking about Karissa's dangerous pregnancies. And, yeah, like, I genuinely hope Karissa is not hurt or ill or dies during this pregnancy. Like, I really genuinely do. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, not at all. But how much of a risk she is at genuinely terrifies me. And I kind of like, I almost... Okay there, babe. Where are you going? Oh, goodbye. Bless you. Sorry. Yeah, I find myself, like, genuinely kind of scared when I see posts about her on social media and stuff, because I'm so worried something's happened to her, because there's such a risk. Like, and I just think about her poor kids. Like, can you imagine what it's going to be like for her 10 kids if they have to grow up without a mother and Andre for a father? And how much the oldest ones would have to, like, pick up the slack and do the work. It's just, it doesn't bear thinking about. But I'm going to take a little one for a pee. Back in a second. Okay, so, Karissa goes on to... Sorry, yeah, sorry, my sister just texted me just now while I was down taking KYRA out, and my brother's cats just died unexpectedly in the night, and it's kind of hitting me a bit harder than I thought it would. It's just, my sister's cat's been ill recently with kidney damage, and now Jerry's gone, and I just lived with Jerry for a few months when I lived down in Brighton. He was such a sweet little kitten. I don't know what his brother's going to do without him. God, sorry. Okay. Makes me appreciate KYRA so much. I'm so happy I still got her. Karissa says, many people stop having children due to the risk of death. But every time we get in the car, our risk of death is much higher than giving birth, yet we do it every day. Okay, but like, just because we do one thing that's risky, that doesn't mean we should do everything in the world that's risky. It's like, you know, there's also risks with drinking alcohol. That doesn't mean we should all go and smoke a bunch of meth, you know? And different risk levels matter too, and Karissa's ideas about what is more riskier here, they're just a bit off. So according to the National Safety Council, they estimate that the odds of dying in a motor vehicle crash in the US are about 1 in 107. So from what I can tell, this means in every 107 car crashes, 1 is fatal. The actual likelihood of dying per car journey is much, 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 much lower. And we now minimise the risk of dying in car accidents by things like not allowing certain people to drive, making people take tests before they do drive, having road safety laws, having seatbelts and airbags and other safety features and so on. That stat of 1 in 107 car crashes, and probably like 1 in however many 100,000 car journeys, is not comparable to, in Karissa's case, where she's nearly died 3 times in 13 pregnancies, you know? The details of which we covered in my last video. All the while she's doing literally nothing to minimise the risks because she refuses to listen to or properly trust doctors. And this is before we even consider the fact that, you know, some of her children have come close to dying because of untreated infections and stuff like that. So her comparing car journeys to pregnancy is just completely incomparable because the pregnancies for her are so much more dangerous, you know? Yeah, the point is, her comparison here is not even close to being accurate or relevant. I understand our children need us. We can't just risk our life at the expense of our other children, right? But why do we value the children that are here more than the ones that will come? Your child that's here today was once a future child for you. But I guess the difference is that the children who exist now already exist, and they're already living and sentient and conscious. And I don't know about anyone else, but I definitely value that over something which doesn't yet exist and which is just a kind of idea and we still have a choice of whether it becomes sentient or not. I don't know, call me crazy. She says we're willing to put our lives at risk for so much. Flying in a pain, driving, sports, when in reality pregnancy has actually been proven to be healing to the body. No, it hasn't. Stop lying. Next up, she complains that people are... we'll talk a little bit more that in a bit, don't worry. Next up, she complains that people are concerned about kids in big families, and then goes on to talk about how no one has enough patience to have a lot of kids, including her, but that's the joy of it. This next... oh god, I can't get over how bad the writing is in this section. She uses full stops as though they're commas, but even commas here would be unnecessary. When we start a new job, full stop, we're never just automatically good at it, full stop. We learn how to do it, full stop. When we start a new sport, comma, we are never just automatically good at it, full stop. We have to practice and learn it, full stop. Who taught her to write? I've never once even kinda of regretted a child I've birthed. And the best news, doctors treat pregnancy like an illness, but God made our bodies so perfect. It's been proven pregnancy actually is healing to our bodies and keeps us from aging as quickly. Our bodies go through many changes in pregnancy, but it's also quite beneficial. Please stop this lie. Look, I'm not going to deny that for many people the difficulties of pregnancy are worth it, and I won't deny that every pregnancy is different. Some people have less problems than others, and some people, you know, they barely even notice any issues while they're pregnant or giving birth or whatever. But to claim it is healing and anti-aging to any people, never mind the majority, is just blatantly false. When you're pregnant and you're carrying a baby and growing a baby inside of you, your internal organs are compressed and shoved around. Your genitals may tear, you can lose your hair, you might have bleeding gums, headaches, issues with blood pressure, piles, back pain, pain in your breasts and nipples, and even more problems if you choose to breastfeed. Thrush and other fungal infections, vomiting, which if prolonged can cause tooth decay, deep vein thrombosis, issues with excessive bleeding during childbirth, preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, and so much more. I'm sorry, but I don't call that healing. We can't just deny these problems are there or how common they are. I fully believe that we need to talk about them so people actually go into making the choice if they want to be pregnant or not, fully informed and educated. Next up, Karissa says that not having any money or not having enough money shouldn't stop people from having kids because from a practical perspective, I believe we are doing too much. Yes, being able to provide a home, clean clothes and food for your kids is too much. Now, don't get me wrong, I know consumerism and overconsumption in general is a problem, but generally when people talk about not being able to afford kids, they don't mean, well, I won't be able to buy any 3 iPads by the time they're 5. For most people it means, well, if I had a kid, I'd have to choose between paying for electricity and buying us food each month. Karissa says that your financial circumstances shouldn't determine your family size or your future children's worth, and on the one hand she's partially right, you know? Even kids born into poorer families can grow up loved and cared for and develop into wonderful, productive adults. But I do think if you have a choice, and you have kids knowing you can't provide the basics for them, or worse, you keep encouraging people to have kids knowing that they can't provide the basics for them, like food and shelter and a clean environment, then that's just irresponsible and dangerous and you are intentionally doing harm. There's a difference between like, oh, I found myself in this situation and I'm going to make the best of it and still provide for my kid as best I can, and I know I can't provide, but I'm going to actively try and have a child that is going to suffer anyway, you know, there's a difference there. She writes, I can testify that God always provides for us after we have the baby, whether it's through new opportunities or lower bills, he always makes a way. Great, Karissa, I'm glad you've had that, but you are the exception. Not everyone gets these opportunities. Not everyone gets handouts from, what's that guy's name, Shaq? Something like that. He gave them like a free car or something because reasons, like not everyone is lucky enough to get stuff like that. You are the exception and you can't tell everyone else what to do based on the privileges that you've had given to you. You know, she says, our children don't need the world, they need our yes and God's love. I don't even know. Skipping forward a bit, Karissa talks about God's plan. She says, when we trust science to prevent children, it might fail us. We might still end up getting pregnant. It's only 99% effective. That doesn't mean God pushed his way through. It means science failed you and your desires. Just the bizarre inconsistency. I don't have words for this nonsense, and right now I don't have the emotional capacity to deal with it. Next up, Karissa tackles the one that is most relevant to me, which is I don't want children. She writes, when I got married, I didn't want children either. I never had a motherhood desire. I never imagined having a family. I didn't enjoy being around children. Yeah, we know that from some of her earlier blog posts. But God, he changed my heart. He gave me his desires. When I officially gave my life to God, years after going to church all my life and even Bible college, I gave up my dreams and desires. I sacrificed that record label offer. I gave up my career aspirations, and I committed to living in God's will over my own. God, this sounds like hell. She's done nothing to convince me that she's in the right here. Also kind of major doubt on this record label offer. She talks about this a lot, but then her music is just something.
I don't feel 40, but these are just some signs. Do you know what I've learned over time? This is for you. Take it or leave it. I'll do it all again. Take it or leave it, but I'll do it all again. Gray. Don't wait for gray just to finally enjoy your day. Why don't we trust God? He knows best. Why don't we trust God? He knows best. Why don't we trust God? He knows best. Even though I know that times get hard, God sees me. I know there's some things that are going on just way too long.
She says we have to make a choice. Our will or his, flesh or spirit. Trusting our finite minds or his infinite wisdom. Going from not wanting kids to 10 children and hopefully more, I can tell you this for sure. I had no idea what was best for me. Terrible grammar aside, then if these are the choices, then I choose my will. I choose my mind. I'm sorry that Karissa never felt like she could trust herself, but that's not how all of us feel, you know? In chapter 20, she talks about how because the time after pregnancy is so difficult, that's not when you should decide if you want to do it again or not. Instead, you need to wait until you've healed and your body's pumped you full of hormones, which will help you forget some of the trauma she went through. Yeah, she just doesn't really make it sound appealing. She says, post-pregnancy, she says, I felt like I'd been hit by a train, and honestly, postpartum never gets easier for me. You feel loose, saggy, sore, chubby, emotional, tired, and not yourself. You will feel done. You will feel worn down. You won't feel like yourself. You will think it's all you can handle. Your mind and body will feel it's at capacity. Yeah, I'd just rather skip all of this, please. I think a lot of people would. If we made decisions based on feelings, we would never get out of bed, never go to church, never cook dinner, never go to school, never start a business, never go to church, never pray. Like, I'm sorry, but are you okay, Karissa? This is a major sign of depression, and I would really recommend talking to a doctor about this. Like, I absolutely get up and look after my dog and work every day and do everything that I do every day because I want to, because I'm listening to my feelings. The only time I didn't was because I was severely depressed. So this is really concerning. This is genuine concern for Karissa here saying this stuff. The chapter's all about how we need to stop wanting to give our children different things because that's what Satan would do. Apparently all kids really need is love, affection, attention, and to be valued enough to be born. Yeah, I'm going to disagree there. I also think they need food, water, warmth, clean clothes, healthcare, a home, an education, socialization, mental stimulation, and a vast number of other things on that list. Skipping forward to chapter 23, and Karissa jumps on the Fundie train of hating the Barbie film for reasons. The pressure on women in this generation is like no other. We're told to do it all, to be it all, just don't be a mother. You know, a lot of Fundies say this, but I never really hear it. The only people I hear it from are other Fundies. I've never heard a feminist who wasn't like a kind of radical 70s, kind of like, you know, the radical, what is 70s? I think now, maybe 60s, 70s. You know, you had the radical feminists back then who were like, yeah, we all need to like turn to political lesbianism and stop having kids. That's the only time I've heard it. I think modern day feminism, and especially kind of intersectional feminism, is a lot more, less about FU patriarchy and more about like, well, what do women really want? How do we get our freedoms? How do we keep making sure women are safe and able to choose for themselves and everyone has equal access to opportunities, you know? So I don't think any feminists today are telling people not to have kids, but there are more feminists saying, hey, if you don't want to, that's absolutely fine. And if you do, absolutely fine. I'm one of them. She says, I mean, the Barbie movie showed it best. The Chosen beating their baby dolls and the mocking of the pregnant Barbie. I don't think she's seen the film. What does this even mean, The Chosen? The Chosen. Reminds me of The Chosen from the Tribe. Please tell me you watched that when you were kids. I loved it. It was from New Zealand. It's this like kids TV show of like basically the entire adult population in the world has been wiped out by this virus, and now the kids have to survive in this like post-apocalyptic world where they all basically gather in tribes and try and survive, and it's brilliant, wonderful. I mean, it's terrible, like, but it's brilliant. And also the makeup is like a huge inspiration. Love it. Oh, great. I also know Dwayne a little bit, who played Bray. He's a good guy. Yeah, but anyway, sorry, back to the Barbie film. This bit, I think she means like the bit where there's like little girls who like smash up their dolls in the beginning because they're like, this isn't what we want. We want like aspirations other than being a mother. You know, I don't get what this chosen bit means. Anyway, the bit of the pregnant Barbie is, let's be honest, that toy is terrifying. I'm absolutely fine with them mocking that doll, and I am like one of the biggest Barbie fans in the world ever. It was mocking the toy, not pregnancy in general, so, you know, because I mean, the flippy tummy, oh, haunting. And I mean, nothing about that film was mocking motherhood and pregnancy. Like, one of the biggest heroes in the film, played by America Ferrera, was literally a mother who just wanted to connect with her daughter. Nothing about that film was belittling motherhood in literally any way. Karissa says that even though she never wanted kids, she got pregnant anyway, and she had to accept it, find joy in it, and fully commit to it. God has entrusted us to be mothers. They're our first priority. Again, none of us should have to do that. It should be a choice. She goes on to say that we don't have to do it all, but as long as we're doing motherhood and looking after our husbands, that's all that matters. It's very restrictive. It's crazy to me. She's like, you shouldn't have to do anything other than be a mother and a wife. She's the restrictive one. The next bit I want to cover, I have no words for. I will not comment on this. I'm trying so hard not to comment on it. I'm just going to read it to you, and you can form your own opinions. Life in itself has been devalued into just science. When we think of life this way, we minimize the complete miracle of life itself. Many people believe that if you do it, you will automatically conceive. Do it. Do you know you're only able to conceive around 7 days a month? There's a small window. Fertility isn't forever and it isn't that long. You only have about 20 years of fertility. From 18 to 38, yes, some women are fertile into their 40s, but it's like, no, I'm sorry, but it's more like 14 to 50. I can remember people telling me if I do it, I'll get pregnant, and it's not determined by God. So I did an experiment. I was too young and very fertile. I only had 2 children at the time. I decided to be intimate every single day of the month for 2 months, except when menstruating, to see if it's just science or God. I wasn't surprised when it took another 6 to 8 months until I found out I was pregnant. I fully believe that when we give God this area of our life, it's completely in His timing, and I can trust that every pregnancy is in His timing and a blessing sent from Him. As believers, do we believe life comes from God, or that it's up to chance and science? Next up, she goes back to talking about dying, just like in chapter 8. This book is all over the place. It's not very well organised. It's just random thoughts strung together. There's no structure. She says, so I did some research. I'm no expert here. You don't say. But this is what I found. I'm sorry, that was mean. This is what I found. But seriously, that's what you want to read, isn't it? When you buy a book for like 11 quid? Like, I get it. If you're consuming content for free, if you're watching a YouTube video, reading a Twitter thread, a blog post, you're listening to a podcast, like, you're providing content for free, so you don't expect everyone to be an expert, but you do expect them to be well-researched in the things they're talking about, if they have any... Oh my god, what's the word? My brain isn't even working. Not like dignity, morality, ethics. Tell me the word I'm looking for. Point is, if I'm reading a book, I would like it to be written by either an expert on the topic or someone who has spoken to experts, you know? Because if you're paying for content, you want decent stuff. I don't know, anyway. Maybe that's just me. I'm sorry, my brain is not with it since I found out about Jerry. Sorry. We're nearly done, I promise, and I'm gonna stop being a downer. She says, I've had my own terrible experiences and side effects with birth control, only being on them for 6 months. You have a 0.0002% chance of dying from childbirth, but a 0.00052% chance of dying from birth control. 31% of women have negative side effects from birth control, and 52% say they're worse than expected. 1 in every 45 tubal litigations ends in pregnancy, and they're often ectopic pregnancies that cause internal bleeding, injury, and death. She never provides any sources here for her stats, so I couldn't fact check or anything like that, but what I can say is, having looked up stats myself, this is not true. I've spoken a fair amount about maternal mortality rates in quite a few of my feminism videos now, and while they're fairly low for white women in developed countries, they're still disgustingly high for many people all around the world. Women of colour in countries like America have scarily high maternal mortality rates, and in many countries around the world, the rate is just shocking for 2024. So let me give you a few stats. So according to the book Invisible Women, which I've quoted many times in my videos, the US has the highest maternal mortality rate in the developed world, and that is for all women. Look at African American women in particular, and they are 243% more likely than white women to die from pregnancy and childbirth related issues. If you want to find out more about that book, I will link it down in the video description, and sources for all this stuff will be down there as well. In Somalia, 829 women die for every 100,000 live births. In Sierra Leone, it's 1,120 women per 100,000 live births. In Chad, it's 1,140 women. In Sudan, 1,150. How is that rate of maternal mortality acceptable? So for women in general in America, the maternal mortality rate is around 0.0008%, not the 2 that Karissa said. In the best countries in the world, like Sweden, it's around 0.0003%. In the worst, like Sudan, it's about 1.15%, which means roughly 1 in every 100 women are going to die during childbirth. That's scarily high. That's terrifying. Birth control, on the other hand, is not likely to kill you at all. No studies have found a link between using birth control and dying. One 36-year-long study, source in the video description, found that there was a surprising correlation between women taking birth control and dying violent deaths, and also a correlation between some oral contraceptives and rates of breast cancer, but this does not mean there's a causal link between them, because I mean, like, how can taking birth control cause someone to be violent against you? The birth control and breast cancer thing, there may be a causal link there, but if there is, we haven't found it or proved it yet or understand why that's happening. On the other hand, that same study did find that there are lower rates of ovarian cancer among women who take birth control, but again, no causal link was found. So there's a chance it may increase the risk of breast cancer in some people, decrease the risk of ovarian cancer in another, but these are just correlations, not necessarily causational links for now. Yeah, that makes sense. With some oral birth control like the pill, there is an increased risk of blood clotting. We do know this. Around 10 in 10,000 people will have this issue, but the chances of it killing you, while not impossible, are incredibly low. It's something that we are aware of, and it's something that doctors take into account before prescribing the pill or birth control, before the doctors even think about prescribing the pill. And if you are on the pill, they do get you to go in for regular tests like checking your blood pressure and stuff like that. So it's not like you're just giving it for funsies and sent on your way. As for Karissa's specific stat on the mortality rate of birth control, I couldn't find any sources for that. I couldn't find any sources for birth control mortality rate at all. I couldn't find any information on birth control mortality rates at all. The only thing that came up when I googled her numbers was her Instagram post, so that's fun. I think things like using birth control, yes, it comes with risks, but so does anything in life. Anytime you have a medication, the list of side effects are, you know, like if I take the lansoprazole medication that I'm on now and open this up. Where are we? Here is my list of possible side effects. All the way from here, all the way down to here, and all the way up here. That's a lot of potential side effects and risks from taking my medication, but this also helps repair my stomach lining and make sure that I can actually eat food and keep it down without throwing up. So, and you know, in turn that stops me being malnourished. So like with anything in life, there's a risk to taking a medication, whether it be a birth control or something to help your stomach acid or an antidepressant or even just paracetamol for a headache. There are risks involved with everything, but it's up to us as individuals to decide if that risk if the benefits outweigh the risk enough to take the medication or do the action or whatever it is. And when it comes to things like medication and treatments, your doctors can really help you decide if that risk is worth it or not. When it comes to things like birth control, the best thing to do is allow people access to all the factual information so they can make up their own choices about what's best for them. Lying to them like this, like Karissa does, is completely unfair and doesn't actually help anyone. Finally, in conclusion, Karissa tells us that the history of birth control is dark and evil. Look up Margaret Sanger, which I would just like to pass over to Pass-Me to discuss this topic, because I do think it's an important one, to be fair, and Karissa, as always, addresses it with no nuance or understanding and is lazy. But because my head is quite fuzzy right now and I don't think I'm going to express myself properly, I'm going to let Pass-Me talk you through it because she was far more articulate. This whole thing about being created in racism, evil roots, population control, it's not incorrect, but it is just an extremely narrow and biased view of the topic. It is far more complex than this. It's also a very US-centric view. This isn't really true for the rest of the world. So there absolutely are issues surrounding things like contraception and Planned Parenthood in the US, right? Margaret Sanger, who created Planned Parenthood in America, there are issues around her and her racism and harmful, horrible beliefs and stuff like that. There's also issues in America with unethical testing of birth control, which was carried out on a lot of low-income women in Puerto Rico. So I can see the whole racism roots there. In the UK, on the other hand, a lot of birth control was tested on just generally low-income women in the UK, so it wasn't a racism thing, it was more of a class thing. These are absolutely issues with the history of birth control and they should not be ignored, but this does not make birth control as we know and use it today inherently evil or wrong or a tool of racism. Not at all. Birth control today can be an incredibly powerful tool of liberation and freedom, especially for women of colour today. Birth control can be liberating for all women, non-binary people, trans men. Having safe, affordable and easy access to a variety of forms of birth control really does benefit everyone in society, regardless of if you're the one taking it or not. It absolutely does, undoubtedly. Like all things, there can be side effects, you know? Some people are allergic to latex, so can't use certain brands of condoms. Some people have bad reactions to the pill or other hormonal birth control. But these are things which are true of all medicine and medical treatments and all health and well-being products in general, you know? But they're the reason why, instead of just saying, see, all birth control bad, ban it all, what we actually need to do is invest more money and funding into finding better, more reliable, more affordable birth control options and provide more options for all people. Sure, an ungenerous interpretation might be that birth control can mess up your body, but you know what else can mess up your body? Pregnancy. And while there may be a problematic history of people utilising birth control or testing birth control on especially women of colour, and that is bad, obviously, that's not what it's used for today. People aren't using it that way today. But you know what is disproportionately affecting and harming women of colour today? Childbirth. Karissa says, when we study the Bible, we see God multiplying his people in the hardest situations as a way to bless them. They cried out to God for children. In today's generation, we instead run from them. We are playing right into the devil's plans of depopulation. If life is created by God alone, then of course, one way the enemy plans on defeating God is by killing his creation through birth control, abortion, vasectomies, tubals, and even natural family planning. Yeah, it's actually true, you know, I did mean to say this before, but yeah, today's video is actually sponsored by the devil. Do you want to sin? Do you fancy a warm holiday in hell? Do you want to be tortured for all eternity? Well, look no further than Satan himself. You can get your own fast pass to hell by using my discount code on screen right now and become a dirty, dirty sinner like me. That would have been so much funnier if I was in a better mood. Karissa ends her book by recommending 2 terrible resources on why birth control is bad, and that's literally all there is to it. What a waste of time for all of us. So in conclusion, Karissa's book that she's selling for over £11 is a mess of typos and poor grammar, horrific sentence structure, rambling nonsense, a lot of repetition, no overall structure to the book, it doesn't really make sense. There's a lot of misinformation in there. I don't know if I've already said that. And just overall, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. But I would like to hear your thoughts on what you think of this down in the comments. Sorry, I've been a little bit of a downer for this last part of the video. It's just, you know what it's like when... I know it's going to sound silly saying losing someone in your family, but like, our pets are our family, and like, those little cats, I've known them since I was, what, 20 years old, and like, oh, bless them, they're such good little boys, and like, I don't know how Angus is going to cope without his brother, and like, oh, bless him. So, sorry it's thrown me off a bit, but yeah, thank you for watching today. I'm going to pass over to Past Me now, who was a little bit happier to do the outro. So if you did like this video, then please don't forget to leave a like or leave a comment, or both, because it really helps with getting more people to watch my videos. Feel free to share it around on social media if that's something you would like to do. And if you're new here, it would be absolutely wonderful if you would subscribe, or if you've been around a while, maybe just check you're still subscribed. That would be really great. Thank you. If you do want to see more of me, I do have a second channel where I post little vloggy bits, some little art bits, some makeup videos, just some little me ranting type bits, and also clips of some of my longer videos, so you can go check that out if you want. I also have a personal Instagram account, which is mostly me just posting my photography, my dog, my art, my friends, fun stuff like that. And if you'd like to support my channel, you can do that via either Patreon, where at the higher tiers you can get exclusive stickers and prints designed by me every 3 months, or you can go check out my merch, where I'm adding new designs all the time. My most recent one is this really fun Colleen Hoover t-shirt, which is like, I survived Colleen Hoover and all I got was this stupid t-shirt. I love this design, it's so fun and it makes me giggle every time I wear it. I'm also at the minute putting together some Colleen Hoover bingo cards for you that you'll be able to download free off my website, which is quite fun. So the next time we do a Colleen Hoover video, you can download one of the cards, play along, and check off the Colleen Hoover tropes as we go. It's going to be really fun. If you want to check out my website and keep an eye for when they're available, it's just racheloates.uk. There's also a bunch of my photography on there, my art, some little rambling posts about makeup, some book recommendations, a little bit of everything. And just go have a look around if it takes your fancy. But anyway, if you have made it this far, thank you so much for watching today. I appreciate you so much, and hopefully I will see you again very soon.